Jay Shear.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear,
business consultant.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear Business Consulting.
Welcome. I'm Jay Shear with Jay Shear Business Consulting. We build solid foundations for service-based businesses to grow and scale and achieve the results and success they deserve. And you've joined Business Minds Coffee Chat. Abraham Lincoln is credited with the quote, "It's not the years in your life that count, it's the life in your years." Well, on today's episode, we're going to talk about designing a life well lived, being connected to goodness, creating ripples and making an impact, being unreasonable, and more. Our guest is a serial entrepreneur and philanthropist who's been a founding member of a number of successful startups, including Priceline.com, Booking.com, and Ubid.com. He's a best-selling author, speaker, humanitarian, advisor, youth mentor, a Hollywood film producer, Grammy Award winner, and chairman of the Global Entrepreneurship Network, to name just a few. If you've ever used an airport kiosk, you can thank him for that too. Please welcome the man who embodies the words of Gandhi, "In a gentle way, you can shake the world," Jeff Hoffman. Jeff, it is great to see you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I always like chatting with you anyway. It's just now we can do it right here with some of our good friends.
Absolutely. Well, I'm grateful for you, and I'm excited about this conversation. And I've got to share with you that researching you and consuming your content and looking at all of the different things that you're doing to impact this world, it is just extraordinary. So I'm really looking forward to unpacking some of those areas and discussing them. So let's dive right in. I thought, Jeff, one of the best starting places for us would really be to have you share a snapshot of your journey and how did your upbringing shape who you are today and influence the work that you're doing?
Okay, sure. So I actually grew up in the Arizona desert, single mom with 4 kids. And my mom worked more than one job. I found out much later, just to try to keep us in the best school district she could. We would have eased that pressure if we'd understood what she was doing. But entrepreneur was never a word I used or knew by any means. But as a child, the last thing I watched my mom work that hard, the last thing I wanted to do was bother her and put more pressure on her. And so as an example, Jay, I played every sport growing up. But when the season changed, the equipment changed. And now you go from your baseball cleats to football cleats, which are not in fact the same, as an example, or just paying for fees for a sports league. So I didn't want to go ask my mom. And so my entrepreneurial career really started as a child because I did everything from asking people if I could mow a lawn or clean their garage or clean a pool, to being the local newspaper boy, delivering papers, to going door to door, trying to sell seeds to plant a garden. Anything I could do, asking somebody, is there something I could do for you that you're willing to pay me for, because it'll ease it for you. And usually someone does want their garage cleaned or something. So the relationship was, if I go out and do some work and ask people, can I do something for you? Somebody says yes, they pay you. And then I ride my bike to the mall and I buy my own cleats and I don't have to bother my mom. So that's how I discovered the relationship between wanting something, working hard, and becoming independent. When I did it myself, Jay, it'd be a weekend and the guys were like, let's go to the mall, eat some pizza, and we'll watch a movie. And everybody would have to go ask their mom or their dad for some money. And I would say, you know what? If they don't have it, I'll buy the pizza. Because I was the one that always had money because I went out and made it. And everybody else was worried about asking their parents. So watching my mom work that hard is what really influenced me, because I realized if you want to get something done, you're just going to have to go do the work.
So Jeff, what were you learned a lot through watching, you learned a lot through the experiences that you had at that time in your life. What were some some lessons that you're able to point back to now, some things that she shared with you about hard work, about life, about living your best life? What were some words of wisdom that she would have shared?
You know what's really interesting? I'm so glad you asked that, Jay, because it was never the words, it was the actions. Uh, and that influenced me much more was watching my mom do things. Like one of the biggest lessons in life was that, my mom believed that all human beings deserve to be treated with the same level of respect and dignity. And I watched an incident. My mom's tiny, by the way. She's a little 5-foot woman. And I watched my little mom one time where we observed between two other women, nothing to do with my mom, one of them basically verbally assaulting the other one with a racist slur. What happened was somebody said, racially attacked somebody else. And other people just went like, oh, right, but kept on walking. Not my mom. She made a U-turn and she said, just a minute. And I'm just telling you, Jay, this woman was huge. And my mom went right up to her and said, excuse me. And that woman turned like she was ready to fight. And my mom just lit into her about how in no case ever is a comment like that acceptable, to treat anybody like that just because of the color of their skin. She went off and it drew a little crowd, right? Mm-hmm. And in the end, the big woman who was ready to fight her, that made the racist comment, wound up in tears and apologizing to the other person. And when it was all over, my mom said, okay, we can go. Like it was nothing. And I was like, you just stood up and stood out for a complete stranger. You stood up against racism. You demanded this woman apologize for mistreating somebody, and then just got back in the car like it was nothing. But the actions impacted me. Talk is cheap, man. Get out of your car and do something. And I saw my mom do that. If no one else stepped up, she said, I'm not letting this happen. I got to say my piece. And later I said, Mom, that lady looked like she was going to hit you. My mom said, well, I thought that myself for a minute. But, if everybody walks away in fear, nothing ever gets better. Somebody's got to stand up for what's right in the world. So that, Jay, it was less about what she said to me. It was more that she actually got out of the car and did it that influenced me significantly.
That's a remarkable story. And I'm sure that there were many that were similar in nature. And, as you look back over your life to this point and start to look at where those common threads are and see how you show up and serve today, the amazing things that you do, the way that you are giving and creating impact, it's pretty clear that you can tie at least a part of that back to your childhood and watching and observing your mother. So I thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Sure.
I'm curious with your siblings. So it was you and 3 of your siblings together. Yep. Did any of them also pursue the world of entrepreneurship, and did they take some of those same principles and wisdom away and apply that in their lives?
Yes. Not all of them at first, but right now, all 4 of us are business owners of our own and all entrepreneurs. So both my sisters and my brother wound up owning their own businesses and being entrepreneurs. So the answer is yes. That's what we observed Mom doing, was sort of plotting out, her life and trying to integrate all these pieces together. But she was in control of it because she wasn't somebody else's employee. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no right or wrong here, Jay. It's just kind of a DNA thing. But yes, it wound up rubbing off on my siblings, and all of them are currently entrepreneurs.
Amazing. Is there any sibling rivalry or competition among the 4 of you?
No, everybody helps each other.
I love that.
My 2 sisters wound up starting a company, building a company together. So, with my brother kind of as their sort of virtual CFO. He's the finance guy, not me. But so everybody's been really helpful with each other.
That's fantastic. So I've listened to some of the interviews that you've given in the past, and it's my understanding that your father entered the picture at some point later in life. And talk us through what that experience was like, reconnecting with your father. And a similar question that I asked in regards to lessons that you've learned from your mom. What did your father instill upon you? And what did you take away from the fact that he wasn't a part of your life, at least in the formative years?
Yeah, they were divorced when I was a baby, basically. For a lot of people listening can relate, but growing up without a father and without him, I didn't love that because we were in our neighborhood one of the only divorced families, and I would see boys with their dads working on a car or throwing a football, things that I was missing. So there was definitely a downside and things I wished I had that I didn't. I would love to say that because I didn't have him, I figured out how to do those things myself. But the truth is, I never became handy, right, at fixing things and using tools because I didn't have a father to show me. That was all the downside of it. And of course, no one, no boy loves that. No kid does anyway. But the upside, when which was much later as an adult, when I really got to know him, and like in college, I went and spent a summer living with him, which I had never done before. My father's lived all his years in Chicago as a Midwesterner, and there was something real to Midwestern values and ethics, right? There was kind of this thing about, a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. And he was in the construction business. And so I wound up actually in college getting summer jobs on the construction sites in the city of Chicago and meeting people that lived very much the way that my dad talked about. My dad was more focused on, I guess, on quality of relationships, your life, not on your life, not on quantity, and not on, on anything financial. My dad would talk about the fact that you really only have the true friends you have, the people in the world that would do anything for you. You can count them on the fingers of one hand. So do anything for them. And he just woke me up to the fact that there are people in the world that really, really will be there for you. And you need to recognize, appreciate that, and be the same for them, and not worry about everybody else. And so I realized that, and part of the reason I say that was, again, being really sort of open and vulnerable here. My mom and my sister's world growing up was a little more social, about trying to have lots of friends and trying to please lots of people. And my father said that don't worry about that. Be respectful, be polite, be good to everybody, but just worry about the people that are actually worried about you. That was helpful. And the other thing, that one day when these construction workers, when I was working on the construction site, now, Jay, you got to get this juxtaposition. I'm at Yale. So I'm going to Yale with a lot of really rich kids. And then in the summer, I'm going to this construction site in Chicago. And some of the people, two of my favorite people, actually ended their education at about 7th grade. And so two very different worlds. And I was learning just as many valuable lessons, just in a different way on that construction site. One day, these people didn't care about who had how much money or what anybody's title was. They weren't in the rat race that a lot of my friends back at Yale that were all trying to become investment bankers and make $1 million a year on Wall Street. Now, again, not judging, nobody's right or wrong, but that was a different lesson. That's what people were doing at my Ivy League school. But when I went there, I'll just share a really quick story that really affected me one day.
Sure.
Everybody was talking on the construction site. So these are hourly blue collar workers. And everybody was talking one day and they were all coordinating all these plans. And I said, what's going on? And they said, Johnny's daughter's getting married this weekend. And I said, well, you're all planning the wedding? And they said, well, he's building the cupola for the get married under. So-and-so is getting the chairs, right? Of these three families, we've all split up what food we're going to make to cater it. This guy actually has rose bushes, so he's going to do the flowers. And I was like, I just stood there and they said, it's not really a family wedding, it's a community wedding. every one of us has a part of one of us daughter getting married. And I just stood there and I was like, man, that's such a cool thing that every one of them said, we're all doing this wedding together, the whole community. It'll be in the backyard. We'll all be there. We will physically build the wedding and the stage and the set. And this will be everybody's wedding. And I was like, my dad's lesson, because my dad said the quality of the people in your life is way more important than your bank account. That isn't going to make you happy. Then later, some of my friends, now again, we're not judging anybody, but I had some friends who went off to Wall Street from school, were making huge sums of money. And some of them had some drug. These are just real stories. I'm not judging people in general. I'm telling you about two friends. And the two of them wound up getting involved in drugs and alcohol, and they were miserable. And I was like, wow, lesson learned, right? What actually makes you happy in life? Think about it. Because the guys with the big titles, the big money, some of them were not enjoying their lives. And meanwhile, here's these hourly blue collar workers, and I've never seen such excitement to marry somebody else's daughter because the whole community cared about this event. All that stuff really kind of burned into my soul about thinking to myself about what do I really want? And as I get older and as I build a life, what am I trying to build? And so I'm so glad I had that grounding on a construction site while I was going to an Ivy League school, because I believe it prevented me from getting caught up in some of the sort of upward vacuums that I watched other people go to, that in the end, I'm glad I didn't do.
Well, you're certainly blessed. And what an incredible story and a valuable way to learn a lesson. And again, it's one of those things that, as we look today at the different ways that you collaborate with others, the ways that you look to create bigger solutions to problems and bring different people into the equation to be able to solve problems, you can almost see where it ties back to an example like you just gave, where a community of people come together to figure it out and work together with a common purpose and a common mission.
Yep, that was a big learning that, about the team, right? So that's two sides, Jay. Let's talk about it, because we got a lot of people listening that are building businesses. In your life, well, let me phrase it this way: the quality of your life is 100% dependent upon the quality of the people in it. Well, guess what? So is your company. One of the most valuable business lessons I learned was that real leaders don't build followers; they build other leaders, right? It is a servant leadership model. So I didn't become successful by running companies as a CEO that told everyone what to do. I became successful the day I realized that the real job of a leader is to find people smarter than you and then take good care of them. So once I started focusing not on running the company every day, but on finding people smarter than me and then saying, what can I do for you? You know what your real job is as a CEO or a business leader? Your job is to build the place where the best people in your industry all want to work for you and never want to leave. And that's a different way of thinking about it. I used to think I got to get up and run this company and make the decisions. And one day I said, I got to get up and I got to build an environment that attracts amazing people. And then I got to figure out what they care about, how to make them feel valued and appreciated so they never leave. And I was blessed enough. When it really hit me, Jay, was I was still in my 20s when we had that first tech company where we did travel technology, and we were able to sell the company. And after I sold the company, I was doing a TV interview because we sold the company for millions of dollars, and it's a sexy story. Young people, young entrepreneurs selling tech companies for a lot of money. So I was doing a TV interview, and the host on the show, she was reading all these accomplishments, Jay. She was saying, Mr. Hoffman, revenue, 1,200% revenue growth and profits and margins and all this stuff. And she said, these are great accomplishments. Which one are you most proud of? Well, on the way to the studio, the woman that ran HR for me called me and all excited. And she said, Jeff, I just verified something that's really cool. I got to tell you. And I said, what? And she said, in all the years from the day you started the company to the day you sold it, no one that worked for you has ever quit. And I was like, wow, that is the coolest thing I've ever done. And I have no idea how. She said, we had to let some people go, but we had zero voluntary turnover. No one's ever quit. So I started calling people from the TV studio while I was waiting. How come you guys never quit? And they're like, is this a problem? You want us to leave? And I was like, no, I want to understand what makes you want to work here. What is it that makes you feel valued, appreciated, right? Love coming to work, because whatever it is, I need to do it on purpose next time. And so I literally took out a pen and paper, and people started telling me, this is what makes me love my job. This is what makes me feel valued and appreciated. And by the way, it's not just money. It's not just their salary. It's a list of other things. But that's when I realized that my job is to build that environment. I had people that worked for me, Jay, for 4 companies in a row. To build that place, to find people smarter than you, and then build the place that they all want to be. And that it really is not dissimilar to my father's teaching. Take care of the people. Serve the people that really matter to you and that really care about you. And you serve them and they will serve you well. And so that's how that was an evolution for me as a leader, but I didn't get successful until I figured that out.
That's such a powerful message and some important lessons in there. And since you brought that up, as I've been studying some of the businesses that you were involved in founding and looking at the culture that was built with those companies, the intentional culture that was built, and perhaps it evolved over time, but it has always had a connection to people first, right? Caring about the people. And so I want to ask you what do you believe that you did well? And you've already touched on some of these things, but what do you believe that you did well in building businesses? And then on the other side of that coin, what did you not do so well?
Okay. So again, a lot of things for me, just being really honest, I didn't have a mentor or right at the beginning. And so a lot of things I did right, I stumbled into them. It's now, Jay, looking back that I realize what worked. So a lot of stuff I wish I could say I was smart enough to know how to do it, but I evolved into a lot of these things through trial and error. And that part we just talked about, things that we did well was trust and empower these people. Let go, right? I've written one book, it's called Scale, with my co-author, David Finkel. One of the first premises of being able to scale is you can't scale till you can get out of the way. And you can't get out of the way until you can trust and empower people. And so that was something that I did early on when friends of mine would say, you're letting her run sales, right? It's your company. You should be out there at every single meeting. And I was like, actually, she's way more talented than this at me. I'll stick to what I do well. And so as I started trusting people with my baby, which a lot of founders and business owners don't want to do, and stepping back, there's an old adage, Jay, that we've all heard. It's called, if you want something done right, do it yourself. Literally the worst advice you could ever get as a leader. And yet that adage is out there, right? Everyone knows that if you want something done right, do it yourself. So people were telling me, you should be doing this yourself at your company. And I wasn't. I was trusting people. And it turns out that that's something I did right early on. To do that piece that a lot of people, like I said, they don't want to let go. And they don't think anyone can do it better than them. It's their idea. It's their baby. And actually, it turns out somebody else might literally have a way better idea than you. And if you don't, here was another example. One day somebody came to me. Well, I'm going to tell you a funny story.
Okay.
I was sitting in the conference room with some customers. Glenn, my attorney, walked in and he said, I know you're catching a flight today, so I need you to sign this contract before you go. I said, not a problem. I grabbed a pen and I signed it. And then I turned and looked and all the customers were looking at me like that. I said, what? And they said, what you just signed. And I said, what are you talking about? And they said, Jeff, you signed a blank sheet of paper. And I said, okay, well, fine. It'll be a contract by tonight, I'm sure. And they're like, what? And I said, what's the problem here? And they said, you signed a blank sheet of paper, not a contract. I said, correct. But then a contract will appear around my signature by the end of the day. And they're like, how could you possibly do that? And I stopped and I said, oh, I get it. And I said, the issue here is a trust issue because you didn't want me to sign something I haven't seen yet in case it's something I wouldn't sign. And I said, here's what you're missing. One, I'm not a lawyer. I don't write contracts. Two, not only do I trust Glenn, but I literally, if I was on my deathbed and they said, who do you want to take care of family and affairs? That's the guy I would go to if my life was on the line. So in a million years, he would never write anything I wouldn't sign. He's incredibly competent as a lawyer, and I would trust him literally with my life. So any further questions? And they were like, I guess not. And I said, I'm sorry you don't come from an environment where you feel that way, but I actually trust these people that much. And so I didn't think about it till their eyebrows went up that I was signing a blank sheet of paper, because I've never in my life, he still handles legal things for me many, many companies later. So that is what I did right, Jay, is that I let go and I believed in other people. And part of that is I recognize my own weaknesses. You, just because you're the boss or the top of the org chart doesn't make you smarter than anybody that works there. It doesn't make you more capable. And by the way, we get that at the beginning. You have to do everything yourself in a small business because there's no one else there. And it might be going well, but that is misleading, because just because it's going well, that's not enough. If you want to achieve, really big success, you need the experts to do those parts. You need to recognize that every one of us is only good at one thing. Okay. I have never hired an engineer that says, when I'm done engineering, I'm going to do our taxes and then I'll write the marketing copy. Said no engineer ever, right? Engineers do engineering, marketers do marketing. My finance people do the books. And so why is it you think just because you're the CEO that you can do all 6 of those jobs? So you're doing them now because you have to. But what I did right is I was scanning the horizon for someone to hand these things to. And what's interesting, Jay, was everyone said, one day somebody asked me a detailed spreadsheet question. And I said, hang on, I'll get Glenn. Glenn's also a CPA. And it was the CFO as well. And they said, why don't you just explain it? And I said, I kind of understand it at the high level, but if you really have questions, we need to get Glenn. And friends of mine said, dude, you're the CEO. You need to know everything that goes on at this company. And it got to me at first because they said, how could you not know everything going on, every level, every detail? And I'm thinking, that kind of sounds like a bottleneck to me, but maybe it's me. So I went to the Barnes and Noble and I bought a book called Finance and Accounting for Non-Financial People. It doesn't say, it's not one of the dummies series, but it might as well be. And I was all excited. I'm a software engineer, but I'm going to go home and learn accounting now so I can answer every question on our balance sheet. And then I got home all excited. I opened the book, and before page 1, I thought to myself, this is a freaking stupid idea. And I literally laughed and I thought, after this, I'll go back to Barnes and Noble and I'll buy a book called How to Be a Dentist, and I'll just start pulling people's teeth. Never going to happen. I'm going to go to a dentist because that's what a dentist does. So why am I, an engineer, ever trying to learn finance? I'll hire people that actually studied finance and do it for a living. So that old belief that a lot of you are being told, that as the CEO, you better know everything that goes on in your company, I will tell you what that makes you. Not a good leader. It makes you a bottleneck and your company will not scale. So what I did right was I let go.
And I'm just going to interject for 1 second because I wish we had this conversation, the two of us, years ago. It would have saved me so much heartache and so much time invested in areas that I didn't need to invest my time. And I know, Jeff, that there are plenty of people that are either listening to this now or will be listening to this later that are going to hear this and they're going to see themselves in this storyline that you just told. And I hope it gives them pause to step back for a moment and realize what happens when I let go. So continue on, please.
Yep, that's exactly right. And again, I didn't really start to achieve growth until I was willing to do that, even though I was getting criticized by other people. You don't know how that works? I said, no, go ask him. He's way smarter than me. That's why I have him here. There's no way. So anyway, that was, you asked, what did you do well that worked? I did that, even though at the time, that's not what I was being told by a lot of people. Instinctively, I was thinking that same thing. So you also asked the other side, right? Mm-hmm. Something that I didn't do well. I will tell you that, because that was a huge learning too. And I'll illustrate that with a story about one of my businesses that failed miserably. So we were going to, and let me give you the punchline first, and then I'll back up and tell the joke. Even though it's not a joke, the story. The punchline is too many people are blinded by their own brilliance. You have a good idea. Everyone around you thinks it's a good idea. All your employees, your team does. You go home and you tell your significant other, your family, your friends, they all think it's a great idea. So you're like, see, I have a great idea. And you start building it. And then you push it out in the world to see if the world likes it. This is what I did wrong, even though this is what most people do. I had an idea. Here's what it was, Jay, that you don't really need, and what our target audience then was a stay-at-home mom. She's got several small kids, and she needs to buy a sweater. Packing up all the kids, getting everyone in the car, getting the diaper bag filled, getting snacks, diapers, and wipes, unfolding the stroller, getting everything, loading all the kids, driving to the mall, then unloading all of that, right? One in the stroller, one by the hand, grabbing the diaper bag. It's a pain in the butt. Why are you going through all that to go to the mall when you could buy a sweater on your computer using this brand new thing called the internet? Keywords, brand new thing called the internet. So we built an internet shopping company way back then. And this is what happened in reality. It was targeted at stay-at-home moms initially, because it was such a hassle for them to get to the mall. We'll prevent them from doing that. We launched the site all excited. It was crickets chirping, silence. No one bought anything. The business failed. Even though they were on there looking, they didn't buy anything. So I failed. I literally had to close the company, my internet shopping company, too early. But I reached out to some of the moms that had been on there and asked a few of them if I could talk to them. And a few of them said, sure. And I said, look, I saw you on my website looking at products, but you didn't buy anything. How come? And so now, Jay, this is a real conversation I had with a real stay-at-home mom. She said, Jeff, I'm not going to type my credit card into your computer so you and your nerd friends can go buy more computers. I said, I'm not going to steal your credit card. She said, how do I know that? I said, we can't even see your credit card. She said, how can you not see it? I'm typing it into your website. I said, of course you are, but we use RSA 128-bit encryption. And she said, I'm sorry, I only speak English. And I said, I'm speaking English. She said, I don't know what 128-bit encryption is. I said, do you know what encryption is? And this is for real, Jay. She said, I think that's how Egyptian people used to bury their dead. I said, okay, that's not encryption, but thanks anyway. And she said, then obviously I don't know. And I turned to my whole team. We are all tech team. We're an internet company. Everybody here knows what encrypted data is. But guess what? The stay-at-home mom has never even heard of it. So you asked what we did wrong. We were blinded by our own brilliance. And so what I should have done was, and what I did every company afterwards, was never value your idea. The only opinion that matters is the far end of the food chain. So if I had gone out to moms and said, I'm building this thing called a website. You'll be able to see a sweater and click on it and buy it. Will you buy it? They would have told me no, and I would have never built the company. So now what I've learned is, I was on this other TV interview with CEOs, and the woman said, she said to the CEOs, to all of us, when you get a good idea, what's the first thing you do? And all of them said, I grab my team and I go to the whiteboard. And I said, I grab my keys and I go to the parking lot. And now you understand why. Because the first thing I'm going to do is get in a car and go find mom and say, is it what I'm talking about make any sense? And if she says, I don't even understand it, then I'll go build something else.
Wow.
That is what I did wrong. We listened to our own ideas and we weren't the customer.
Another amazing story. And I've got to just share with you very briefly that you are a prolific and fantastic storyteller. So I'm not sure if that's something that's always been part of your DNA, but I love listening to the way that you weave a story and tell your truth and your lessons through stories. So excellent, excellent. So I wanted to bring something up here, and I'm just curious. You made a conscious decision to stop building companies, I believe, in 2011, and turn your attention in other areas. First, what was the impetus for that decision, Jeff?
Honestly, Jay, it was I was feeling like I was just being honest, too many blessings. We started, I was, 20 something in my 20s when our first startup, we sold it for millions of dollars. A lot of the things, even though I had my failures, I just been very blessed, right? The companies that I was part of, like Priceline, that became multi-billion-dollar companies, as Ubid did. We started a music company and wound up winning a Grammy, got involved in TV production and wound up winning an Emmy. And one day I said, meanwhile, because I'm in the travel business, for many years, I'm traveling around the world a lot. And I'm seeing the way the rest of the world lives, which we tend to forget because we all live in our bubble. And I'm observing this, whether I'm driving down a road in India or on a bus in Ghana or wherever I am, or in Detroit or something, right? It could be Jersey City for all we know. I'm seeing that I'm leading this blessed life and most people aren't. And so one day I sat and I felt guilty about that, but I started thinking about why that is. And I realized that the reason I was able to live a blessed life is because I had this one skill, and this skill, which coincidentally is called entrepreneurship, right? Entrepreneurship is not a job, it's a mindset, right? It's a tool set. I had this one skill where I can take an idea and build it into a business and turn it into something profitable. I actually turned out I was pretty good at that. So I thought, you know what? Maybe instead of feeling bad about all these people who are struggling, what I could do is help them by teaching them how to help themselves. I'm not trying to do it for anybody. I was trying to teach people how to help themselves. Why don't you figure out what future you want and go build it the same way I built mine? And so that's when I made the commitment. In 2011, at that time, I was the CEO of a public company again, which was ubid.com then. And I just said, look, I made a commitment to giving back. And ultimately, Jay, when my best friend drowned tragically in the Irish Sea and I had to give his eulogy, I was sitting there thinking about what he would want to be remembered by, how he would want to be remembered. And in that moment, very introspective to lose your best friend so tragically, I was thinking, hey, Jeff, what do you want to be remembered for? What if this was your funeral? I really had that conversation with myself while I was standing there. And I thought, I don't want to be judged by the number of dollars I made. I want to be judged by the number of other people's lives I made better. So when I left that, I was like, man, you better get busy then and make some people's lives better. So then the path was clear. I will just quit being a CEO, stop building businesses, not focus on making another dollar, and focus on how can I share everything I've ever learned with other people so they can go live their best life. And that's why I became the chairman of Global Entrepreneurship Network, the founding board member at Unreasonable Group, my own charity, World Youth Horizons. Everything I'm doing with the rest of my life is trying to help other people have their own blessed life, whatever their definition is, by sharing anything I can share and my team that will help you design your future the way I wound up being able to design mine.
Wow. It just beautiful, truly beautiful. And there's no question that your best friend knows is so proud of you, is so proud of you for everything that you've accomplished. It's amazing.
I do think about that a lot.
You must.
So, because it makes you question, why are you doing what you do? Because if it's not, for the people around you, then I'm not sure what the point is. So he still helps me every day.
Wonderful. So you had an opportunity to spend some time with the Dalai Lama. And I'm curious, what was that experience like for you? And then what did he share with you that had the greatest impact on who you are today?
Um, yeah, thank you. So we did this challenge where we were challenging entrepreneurs to make the conversation you and I just had, to make other people's lives better somewhere. So in this challenge, the challenge was we picked the Tibetan refugees because they got all the Dalai Lama's people got chased out and they live in refugee camps. Well, a refugee camp is basically tents. No schools, no anything, no technology, no chance to ever get out of the refugee camp because you need education and opportunity and access. And so we challenged entrepreneurs around the world to propose solutions to make life better for anybody that lives in a refugee camp anywhere so they have a chance to get out of a refugee camp. And to actually show the solutions, we picked the Tibetan refugees. And so that's what led to the Dalai Lama showing up, which was an unbelievably cool surprise, showing up at our award ceremony where I was actually judging a lot of these and giving out the awards where we gave them money to actually build their solution. But it was interesting because I remember the early part of the conversation with him was, why are you here? We didn't have a press conference. There's no press releases. So what are you doing here? And he said, I specifically came here because you didn't do a press conference or press releases. Wow. He said, clearly, you guys are doing this to help people, not to get credit for something. You didn't have a press conference. So I thought that was interesting because I was like, how did you know we were doing this? We didn't do any media. And he said, that's exactly why I wanted to come, because clearly this is about people's heart being in the right place. But anyway, it was a phenomenal experience just to listen to the level of wisdom. But the quote that moved me the most was when I was asking for advice, was talking about, changing the world and making things better. And he said this: if you want to change the world, you would think you need to go talk to the people that run it. Right, Jeff? And I said, yes, sir, that makes sense. You want to change the world, you need to go talk to the people in charge of it. He said, waste of time. He said, they're never going to change. He said, instead of trying to change the people that are running the world today, he said, Jeff, spend all your time and energy on the youth. Prepare the next generation to do everything differently and just let those leaders die off. But make sure that the next generation is heart-centered and impact-centered and inclusion and diversity-centered. Focus on the youth and get them ready. And when I thought about it, he's right. Because if I go convince a world leader today, and then when they're out of power, the next person just does it the same way, and it's just musical chairs. And he said, but if you put a line in the sand, which is the next generation, the young today, raise them in a way that they won't ever behave the way my generation did in a lot of ways. So that is why I spend so much of my time, Jay, working with youth. But that comment from the Dalai Lama really validated for me that we got to prepare the next generation to do things in a better way than my generation did. And I fundamentally believe that.
Brilliant. So you brought up the World Youth Horizons. Speak to the mission there and also share what just happened this week and how that ties back to helping the World Youth Horizons.
Okay, sure. Thank you for even bringing that up. I was worried about, again, as an entrepreneur and an engineer, efficiency is always my thing, right? That it's because I was going nuts standing in a long airport line to check in is what caused me to go home and start designing those check-in kiosks that are in airports now. It was that fundamental dislike of inefficiency. And so when I started looking at focusing on youth, again, not judging any youth charity at all, but I felt like if I just started my own, then 100% of the proceeds would go directly to children. There's zero overhead. because everybody that works with me does this as a volunteer. So we have no overhead, on all the proceeds go directly to children. So that's why I started my own. It's worldyouthhorizons.com for people that want to look, donate, whatever. We are focused on two things. Step one for a child is they need to be safe and healthy. So I'll give you an example. In Uganda, we fund an orphanage. In Ethiopia, a school. But what we have to do, and we do these programs in the US too, is a child needs to be in a safe environment where they are healthy, sheltered, and fed. So that's why we build orphanages. That's why we build schools. One of my business partners is Pitbull, the singer, and he's up to 11 schools now that he's built. So that step one is make sure they're safe and make sure they're healthy. Like we recently sent 50 children all to the dentist on the same day in Uganda to make sure that everybody's healthy and can eat, right? And we've had doctors visit them at the orphanage. When kids are sheltered, when they're fed well, and when they have medical attention and health, then they're ready for step two. Step two is access to education so that they can better their lives and get out of the orphanage and get out of the home or the school that they're in. So we focus a lot on providing educational opportunities, from paying school fees and lunch and food fees to kids in the US and other places, all the way up to sending them to college and paying for their college for first generation kids. One last thing that we do at World Youth, in addition to that, is like a program we do in the US, is children that have never seen anything different than what they see every day won't make different choices than the people before them. If all you've ever seen is drugs and gangs, right? And it's time for you to eat, and the only option you know of is if I run drugs, I can eat, then you're going to run drugs. And so many of we do work with rehabilitating ex-cons. I teach them to be tech entrepreneurs. And when we talk to them, they're good people. They make bad decisions. They always tell me, I needed to eat and there was no other option. Turns out there is, but they don't know about it. So what we do, Jay, that program is we take these young people from the worst neighborhoods, Chicago, Detroit, wherever, Baltimore. We fly them to Silicon Valley and we show them the world of tech and tech jobs. Then we fly them down to LA and we show them the creative industries. And then I sit and talk with them and tell them there's a whole world of opportunity for you that isn't running drugs, it isn't being in a gang, it isn't crime, it's education. If you let us help you get educated, you could be working at any companies like these, and you could have a career path that takes you to a place that's way different than where you are. And so those are the kind of programs that we do to light a spark under these kids so they change directions before it's too late, before they're in a gang, before they're in jail, before even worse happens to them. So this is clearly, for me, the most important work of my life. Oh, you asked what we did the other day. We're doing something called Global Field Day. You can look at it at globalfieldday.com, where we're doing a charity where we're challenging a lot of athletes and influencers to do social media challenge. It's sort of like the Ice Bucket Challenge, but ours is the Field Day Challenge, to do a physical activity. It's part of getting kids off their devices. Go outside and play. And so we're doing this with a bunch of professional athletes. We're launching it. And we did a launch event in the Denver Broncos Stadium just the other day with a bunch of NFL players and a bunch of kids from boys and girls clubs and places like that, to show these kids, just to get them on a brighter path, to let them know that people care, to help them understand that, getting out and playing is part of the whole adrenaline and endorphin and the path to a lot of better things. But anyway, we did something fun while we were there, Jay. We got a crazy idea to break Rob Gronkowski's world record football catch. Gronkowski caught a football thrown from a helicopter 600 feet high. And so we decided for fun to try to break it. So I had some friends of mine that were NFL players come. We got a helicopter. We went up to 700 feet. We missed a zillion in a row. But when we were down to the last 5 balls, one of my friends, his name's Devin Funches. He's now the Green Bay Packers wide receiver, but people know him from the catches he made in the Super Bowl when he played with Cam Newton at the Panthers. He caught it. And we went absolutely nuts. All of this is to raise money for youth charities, including mine, including World Youth Horizons. But we broke Gronkowski's record. It turns out we were shooting for 700 feet. The chopper was at 750. If you go to my Instagram, speaker Jeff Hoffman, you can see the video, but it was just posted on TMZ. It's posted on SB Nation. It'll be running on Sports Center tonight. So Gronk, by the way, Rob Gronkowski already replied to me, and he was a good sport. He wrote that records are meant to be broken. And then he put in parentheses, I might go for 900. So
Ooh.
I was actually talking to the Gronkowskis today. So anyway, it's just things people can step up and do. What I appreciate was these NFL players use their platform to help us raise money to educate kids. And that is a really, really cool thing. And so thank you for asking. It was super fun, but it was also successful.
Absolutely. Well, perfect. Well, obviously, we're going to link to as much information as we possibly can in the show notes, as well as linking to World Youth Horizons and how our audience can get involved and donate to that organization.
Thank you, Jay. And by the way, I need your audience to know that you personally did very generously make a donation to World Youth Horizons. You have, Jay, already stepped up to help the kids, and it was really, really appreciated.
Absolutely. And I'm grateful to be a part of that in any way possible. And what's incredible, Jeff, is watching the kids who are impacted by this, to see the joy in their faces and their appreciation is truly, I mean, it makes my heart sing. It really does. It's incredible. So I want to just say before we go any further, and we're about to wrap up here shortly, so sure. I want to just kind of tie a bow around a couple of things. For those that are listening right now, you've heard about a lot of big things that Jeff has done, and clearly, Jeff, you have. But the big point that I want to make with this is that everyone can make an impact. Everyone can do something. It only takes an individual with enough conviction, with an idea, with a passion, with a purpose to create ripples. And so understand that, please, that you, the listener of this show right now, you have the power to inspire and to create change and make an impact as well. Would you agree with that, Jeff?
Absolutely. One of my all-time favorite quotes was Mother Teresa's quote, where she said, if you can't feed 100 people, feed one. Do something where you are. Help one kid. We had some people that came out in Denver, just local people, that we said we're bringing in kids from, we're going and getting kids out of the Boys and Girls Club. And people came out and volunteered. And some of these people just sort of connected with one child in the community that they didn't even know was suffering so much in their community. So I had a couple families that came out with their own kids and connected with some of these kids and said, Jeff, we're going to follow up and we're going to help her family out because she told us how badly her mother is struggling. Just do something and help someone. The ripple effect of that is huge. Don't worry that you can't do something giant at a football stadium. That is not what's required. What is required is do something somewhere. So I totally agree. Thank you for saying.
Absolutely. Jeff, what overarching message would you like to leave our audience with? And the one that you just said, I think, is a big one, but what else would you share with our audience?
You know what? I think that it would be to think about your legacy now, not at the end of your life. What is it? Why are you, for people building a company, why are you working so hard? Why are you sacrificing so much? What are you actually doing this for? Right? I was blessed in that I achieved, quote, success, right? Young. And, everybody's out there trying to get rich or whatever they're trying to do. And I was able to do that young. And the good news was I stood back and I said, wait, this is it. This is why people are sacrificing their health, their family relationships, working around the clock for this. This can't be all it is. So it gave me a chance to say, what do I really care about? Why am I working this hard? What am I trying to do? And it wasn't until the first opportunity I had to impact somebody else's life, I was able to save a home for abused women that was being shut down because they ran out of money. And I said, well, wait a minute, I have money, I'll just give it to them. And it was life-changing. And I said, now I get it, right? The relationship between why I work so hard. You know, Jay, let me phrase it this way, and this is what I'll leave everybody with. Success is not the destination. Success is only the starting point. Success is the platform that enables you to finally do something with your life that really matters. That's what I want to leave people with. I didn't know I was working so hard until I found that out. And then I was happy to work that hard because I realized success created a platform that let me do something that matters. Making another dollar and buying another house doesn't matter. You're allowed to do that, that's fine. But having an impact on somebody else's life, especially a child, that's what matters.
Beautiful words. So, Jeff, here's my final question to you. What's one of the greatest gifts that life has given you that you didn't realize at the time?
That's an easy one. It is absolutely the opportunity to make friends all over the world and all over the place. Make friends with people that don't look like me, that didn't come from my background, that on the surface, people would wrongly say, would never guess that we were friends because everything about us is different. So that's what it was. And when I was blessed enough to be able to start traveling and meeting people in other countries and other cultures, it took me a while to realize that's a massive gift. The fact that I have friends on other continents and other countries and friends that don't look like me and didn't grow up like me, that is the true wealth in life. And so I didn't appreciate it when it was happening, but now it's the coolest thing ever. I've got an amazing and diverse, you see it on my social media, group of friends that I never imagined. And those are the things that make me, feel like the wealthiest person around, because I have this group of people that we care about each other and people I just never thought I'd have as friends. So that's what makes my day every day.
I love that. Thank you. And Jeff, thank you so very much for spending some time with us on Business Minds Coffee Chat. I am utterly grateful for you. I'm so glad that you've entered my life and that our paths have crossed and that we were able to have this conversation. And for you just sharing of your knowledge and sharing your wisdom with all of us. There's so many lessons that have come out of this conversation. So thank you.
Jay, thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for helping the children yourself. And I look forward to our next conversation, especially now that COVID is slowly easing, sitting down and having lunch in person. Thank you, my friend.
Absolutely. Yes. And all of you, thank you so very much for watching and listening. And please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. We would love it if you would share just one or two key takeaways that connected with you from this episode. And to enjoy more episodes and to learn how Jay Shear Business Consulting can help your business build a solid foundation and achieve the results and success that you deserve, all you have to do is visit jayshearbusinessconsulting.com. And until next time, keep learning, keep growing. Definitely visit Jeff's website, which we're going to link to, and we'll see you on the next Business Minds Coffee Chat. Take care.
Jay Shear
Jay Shear
Business Consultant.
Jay Shear Business Consulting.